Now, this next panel is about why diversity is needed in the upstart community or the startup community. And what's amazing about this panel are the panelists. The moderator is one of my favorite entrepreneurs in the world, Izanami Martinez. She's the CEO of Dr. 24. And the panelists themselves are, you couldn't ask for a better group of panelists. We're talking Gary from Wayra. We're talking Sofía from Google Campus. And we're talking Pablo Esteves from Emzingo. Now, let me tell you why this is very special for me, because I run the Venture Lab at IE Business School, and I don't know if you know, but IE Business School is 95% diversity. 20% of our students become entrepreneurs. That's way above the average in the United States, which is 7% for business schools. So we actually believe that diversity is critical to innovation. And this panel today is going to tell us all about it. Izanami, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paris. Well, hi everyone. Thank you very much for coming to see us today. I'm also in love with this panel. I love each and every one of the panelists too. And I think that the issue that we're talking today is really, really interesting. One of the best advice I have ever received is don't hire copycats. Hire a team as diverse as possible among them. Don't hire two people who went to the same university, did the same MBA, and dress the same and think the same, because it's like you're hiring one person. And I think that that relates to the whole ecosystem. And as much diverse you can get it, the better. So we have here 4 fantastic people to tell us from their own experience in their own ecosystems how this really happens, how diversity really helps and impacts the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we're going to do like a very quick round of presentations so they can tell you who they are and what ecosystems are they in the whole day, and then we will go more to the specifics. So we start with Gary.
Okay, so my name is Gary Stewart. I'm originally from the US, so I grew up in the Bronx, an immigrant from Jamaica. But then I went to Yale College, Yale Law School, so became eventually a lawyer, then switched to starting my own company in Barcelona, a startup that we sold earlier this year to a competitor. After that, I went to teach at IE Business School, actually. And then for the last 5 years, I've been working with Telefonica, running their Wayra program, first in Spain, Barcelona, Madrid, and then now in London.
Great. Sofía?
So I'm Sofía Benjumea, and I'm the head of Campus Madrid, which is a Google space for entrepreneurs. Before that, I co-founded with Maria, so there we had a bit of diversity. Like I was in my 30s, she was in her 60s, so we had a good generational diversity in that field, and we co-founded South Summit. And now at Campus Madrid, I'll talk about it more in depth, but one of our core goals is to try to bring the ecosystem to another level in many app subjects, but especially in diversity. Thank you.
Pablo?
Hi, my name is Pablo. I'm originally from Mexico City, arrived in Spain in 2010 to do my MBA at IE Business School. After a brief stint in South Africa, I joined Emzingo, where I'm now a managing partner. Emzingo is it was a startup, it's not longer a startup, that was initiated by IE alumni in the Venture Lab. And more recently, I joined Team Labs, which is another education platform here in Madrid. Basically, these past 6 years, I've been working with social enterprises and companies to develop social innovation, new products, and leadership development with diverse teams.
Thank you. Megan?
Hi, my name's Megan Mercier. I'm the economic officer at the U.S. Embassy here in Madrid, so I'm a little bit different than the rest of the folks on the panel, but very involved in the entrepreneurial community here since I arrived a couple years ago. Before that, I was working in Bogota, Colombia, and before that in Washington, D.C., originally from Omaha, Nebraska, so that adds a little bit of diversity to the panel as well.
Great. So now going more into depth, how does diversity affect your ecosystems? How do you see it impacts it and enhances it? And what are some specific examples of that?
I think, well, for those that we know, Campus Madrid is a space for entrepreneurs. It's a physical space that's open for anyone from the community. So when we started, we had 30%, for example, of women, and now we've managed to grow that to 35%. And we run several programs, but I think like the core to why diversity matters is we're all here because we need innovation. And if we want innovation to be for everyone, we need it to come from everyone. I mean, not everyone will be, innovation is about solving problems, and we need that innovation to come from people from different backgrounds, from different genders, from different geographical, whatever you say, so that really we manage to tackle all the problems that our society is facing. So that, I think, is why the core of diversity, when we call about startups and innovation, is important.
Great.
So
Gary.
what I would say is that, implicit in your question is this assumption that there is diversity in the ecosystems, and I would say that in most tech ecosystems, at least, there isn't that much diversity.
Okay.
So last year we did a study in the UK as to the diversity within UK startups, and what we found is I think it was something like 75% of most entrepreneurs were kind of upper middle class white men who were based in central London in zones 1 and zone 2. So not even within London dispersed, but only within the kind of like really wealthy zones. So I think that part of what we need to do is first acknowledge that there is this problem, and second of all, I think that in terms of why it's important, for me it's all about opportunity. It's not necessarily saying that you need to have like a black person or a woman on every panel, but it's just to say that if there is a talented person, that person shouldn't be locked out or otherwise feel intimidated by the possibility of joining that startup or that group. And I think that right now, for a lot of people, there are a lot of places that don't feel that inclusive, so you almost think, well, there's no one like me there, so why would I even think about doing it? And even though you probably could contribute something really, really interesting, you're just not even going to be given the chance.
Yeah. Gary, you have experience in the Spanish ecosystem and in the London ecosystem. And well, the London ecosystem is way more advanced in a lot of things than the Spanish ecosystem. That this affects also diversity. Is more diverse, the London ecosystem, is something that is related to the advancement of the ecosystem, or is independent?
Yeah, I would say that London is more, I mean, I shouldn't say this in Spain, but thanks for asking the question. No, but I think that in Spain, at the beginning, what I saw is that a lot of things were still determined by family connections and who you were and your name and stuff like that. So that was for everything. It's just kind of like a lot of like personal references are what determine whether or not you're going to be given a certain opportunity. I think in London, it's a little bit more open than that, but you'd be surprised not that much. The kind of criteria for determining whether you're in or out of the club may be slightly different, but there's always a club with people inside and people outside trying to get in, and people inside trying to keep the people out.
Okay.
One of the things that I want to add to the thought of Gary is when a company or a school asks us why diversity is important, and you always can say there are multiple studies that show that diverse teams are more productive, they sell more, they're more innovative, they are more profitable, but why diversity is not happening? And there are two biases or two heuristic shortcuts that we humans have that we have to be aware, and I think that Gary is alluding to that awareness. One is heterogeneous teams that are different, are harder to work with. And that's called fluency heuristics, and means that when it's easy, the information, we take it as truer or more beautiful, right? So we tend to seek people that are like us, because it's easier to talk to them, hence less conflict. The reality is that different teams, more heterogeneous teams, perform better because it's harder. The truth is that it's harder, but the work is consistently better. And the other one is around overestimating how difficult it will be, right? So one of the things that we have to address is this bias that we have that working with someone different with me will be extremely difficult. Yeah, it will be difficult, but don't overestimate how difficult it will be, because actually the work will be better, right? So I think it's important to not gloss over the lack of diversity, or not even gloss over diversity and say, oh, it's really cool, we have a black person in our team, and rather acknowledge that, well, it's going to be difficult because we are different, but that will make it better.
Okay. Megan, in your experience, how does diversity impact?
Well, I think what Pablo is saying is really interesting because I read recently a Harvard Business Review study that was talking about these biases, and even though they exist, they also push people to do better. If you think that you're going to be working with somebody who may not share the same view as you, studies actually show that you prepare better and you think more creatively and more broadly about solutions. And so I think that just builds on what you were saying about, while there may be inherent biases, why diversity actually promotes the growth of teams, the growth of companies. For me, representing the United States here in Spain, diversity is at the foundation of our country, and we are very proud of that. 40% of Fortune 500 companies in the U.S. were actually founded by immigrants or children of immigrants, and about a quarter of the tech startups are started by immigrants to the United States. So it's something that we see as very important to economic growth, to job creation, and also what other people mentioned about within a company itself, but also for the broader economy. So one way that we've tried to engage here in Spain is through the Incubed program that Sofía and almost everybody else on this panel have been involved in supporting, to bring together a diversity not only of entrepreneurs, but bringing in investors and institutions from both the United States and Spain to share experiences between ecosystems, and also between different sectors. So you have the public and the private sector talking to each other about what are the challenges and how can we face them. And so we really see it as a multidimensional, and think about diversity in a multidimensional way and try and connect, the Spanish ecosystem with the U.S.
Great. Now, I know that we have identified the issue and we see the issue in our respective ecosystems, but do you have any ideas or suggestions, or have you seen someone or something trying to fix it and that try to work?
Well, I mean, at campus, what we're doing is, at first I was not really fond of it. It was just like creating programs for entrepreneurs of different, like women, moms, parents, seniors, because diversity is not only about like gender, it's much more broader. But then I realized that it worked for campus. It was just like creating this little ghettos, these spaces, comfort zones for these people that, as Gary was saying, maybe didn't feel comfortable coming to campus, to this ecosystem, thinking that they didn't belong, thinking that, hey, this is just a space for young startups with sneakers and in their 20s, male developers, what am I doing there? So by creating these spaces, these comfort zones for parents, people that could come with their babies, for moms, for seniors, for artists, different programs made them feel comfortable, get to know the space, and for that was just kind of we were creating a funnel. So once they were in that program, we invited them to be part of the overall community, to be part of the overall programs. And since there, we've created programs like coding, and we realized on a Saturday having a woman with a baby attending the event, an 8-year-old, a 65-year-old that wanted to learn to program, everyone together in the same room, and that was like, okay, this is working. It's just making people realize that they can be part of this and that this is not just for one single kind of people.
Any strategy that you have seen worked in this?
Yeah, no, I mean, so first a comment, which is that I think sometimes diversity is too open a term because it applies to everyone and everything. And I think that in the UK, one of the attempts now to diversify that we're seeing is kind of lower income white men as a target that needs to be kind of included in a lot of institutions. Because after Brexit, I guess what people saw is that people weren't really that happy that maybe you have upper middle class white men who are basically running most of central London, whether it be in the banks or in the tech companies. But the people in the regions were basically like, well, what about us? And I think that they were willing to take a step that was almost self-destructive to prove a point. So now you have the prime minister basically say, okay, we got the message, we're going to focus on you. And I think that one of the things that we might need to think about is the extent to which socioeconomic class is also something that needs to be focused on more specifically. One of the things that we're doing in the UK is, even before Brexit, what we realized is that a lot of the local councils were coming to us saying, it's not good enough to only focus on London. Why don't you open up a space in Manchester or Birmingham? When I was in Spain, we saw the same sort of thing. People were saying, it's not good enough to focus on Barcelona and Madrid. You also need to open up stuff in Sevilla and all these other places where people may feel like, well, we want to be entrepreneurs too. So Telefonica is rolling this out. It's called Telefonica Open Future. And I think part of the initial idea was that since so many people were coming to us asking, can you actually democratize entrepreneurship and make it more open to people who don't happen to be based in central cities? We've been rolling that out both in Spain and the UK. But I think it's a kind of different sort of diversity. It's not racial or gender, as you're saying, but also about people who might feel left out from the benefits of like technology.
Cool. Pablo.
Well, for us, when either with Emzingo or with Team Labs, it's remarkable that we have achieved 50-50% ratio in gender. We have multinational cohorts. So, for example, with Emzingo programs, we have participants or alumni, actually, of 42, 45 countries. And with Team Labs, the team companies here in Madrid usually have a mixed nationality, so it's not only Spanish people. And what is working for us is that it's not quotas, but we are aware of the problem, right? So creating that awareness is the first step, and recognizing that you seek diversity. It won't come from the top down, or it won't be like manna from heaven. You have to actually recognize that you are seeking diversity for the sake of diversity, and then understanding that diversity will be difficult. So we coach and we mentor all our fellows at Emzingo and all our team companies at Team Labs to get them through the hurdles, manage the conflict, solve the differences. It's easier when it's a diversity issue. If it was a value disconnect, it's harder to overcome. But when it's just a difference in diversity, you just have to manage and acknowledge those differences, right? And it's not about diversity in the end, it's about empathy and understanding that the other person is different, and you have to cater to that difference.
Are you seeing that older people have more struggle to understand diversity than younger people? Or it's apart from the age?
I think that there's a generational gap in the terms of what we define diversity, right? And as Gary said, the problem is also that we define diversity as something very broad. We see that the Emzingo fellows, which come from academic programs and are ages 23 to 33, and the Team Labs participants here in Madrid that are ages 19 to 29, are more self-aware of who they are, and they're more comfortable in diverse teams. Whereas if I'm speaking with an executive at one of our corporate clients and I need to convince this person about, hey, you need more female in your team, they might give me an old school chauvinistic answer, which is uncomfortable.
Megan.
I think the question about achieving diversity and how you do that is a really interesting one, and kind of building on what Gary and Pablo were talking about. I think it really, has to start with education and really reaching out to, diverse populations and giving them, the educational opportunities to learn about entrepreneurship, to have kind of experiential learning experiences, because otherwise, once you're a corporate trying to find a woman VP or trying to find, someone who can run your China operation, if you're not educating the marginalized communities in your country, you're not going to find those people. And so what the embassy is doing, we have a few partnerships with local nonprofits. Team Labs is one of them, Fundación Tomillo, to really help kids understand the importance of technology education, and to help schools disseminate entrepreneurial values and tools to kids. And so really trying to reach a broader, more diverse population so that when you're a company that's looking for that talent, it's there in the ecosystem.
Great. Okay, I think that we have touched some very, very interesting points, and it's a very big theme, but we have been able to tackle some very interesting things. And to end, I would like to ask you to give us a tweet with your ideas on diversity and how we can fix it. So 140 characters per person.
Might be tough. I mean, I would say right now there's a backlash against diversity. So I think the first thing is to actually listen to what these people are actually angry about and work at finding solutions with them instead of trying to impose this kind of euphoric version of diversity. It's really about kind of making sure that people understand what their interest and their benefit from diverse ecosystems is.
Good one.
I think I will go back to the first thing I was saying, like if you want innovation for everyone, innovation must be done by everyone. So that's one of the keys.
That's a great tweet. Yeah. Pablo.
Yeah, I would say it's not about diversity, it's about empathy and trust your sense of fairness, right? So if you're in a situation, that's the end of the tweet. if you're in a situation where you're seeing that across the table you don't have someone different, highlight that, right? Or if you have someone in your team that is not being treated fairly because he or she is different, either because they come from a different country, or they have a different gender, or they have a different sexual preference, or different race, give them a little bit of the power that you have or the privilege that you have and share that with them and bring out these issues and celebrate the differences because there's a lot of value in differences.
Good one. Megan.
So tweeting is not my forte. I will give it a shot. I think it goes back really to the education, and I guess I would say reaching out to marginalized communities, giving them critical thinking and educational opportunities is, and tech skills is what's going to drive and allow companies to achieve diversity in the future.
Okay, well, thank you very much to the fourth panelist. We're finishing on time. Yes. and thank you very much, you all, for coming. I hope this was interesting, and enjoy the summit.
I'm staying here.